In this part of the presentation, this video, I explain you what is the survey feedback technique. In general terms, when we develop and carry out an intervention to assess the occupational health of a workforce, we follow several stages. As you can see in the slide, the first one is the assessment or evaluation of the organization. This one. Of course, to plan the assessment, previously we must meet with the managers and discuss with them how the assessment will carry out, etc. When we have the data of every employee, we will analyze the information, and these results will be explained in a report. The number 2. This report will give to organization when we have the report finished. So in this report, usually we will propose specific evaluations of those variables with worse results. Specific evaluation, the third point. At this moment, it's recommended to carry out at least one session of survey feedback to communicate the results to employees. Therefore, one of the main objectives of the survey feedback is to communicate the results of the evaluation to employees. After the survey feedback, we will give the intervention proposals to organization, and finally, we should assess the efficacy of the interventions. These are the recommended stages, depending on the organization, and mainly on the money of the organization. Sometimes not all the stages are carried out. How can we define the survey feedback? Well, a useful definition argues that it is the feedback of the results of an evaluation to employees. It is a classic methodology to cause an organizational change. Thus, here we can understand the important effect of this type of methodology. When we design the session of survey feedback, we will have at least two main objectives. The first one is to obtain data related to organization. It's information more qualitative, obtained directly from employees. It's useful to corroborate if the data of the questionnaires agree on the opinions of employees. The other objective is to communicate the data to employees. In this communication, we'll be able to analyze deeply and to understand better the problems detected. And also will answer the questions that employees have about the results of the evaluation, and will propose more specific improvement actions. How can we develop a session of survey feedback? In this slide, we'll see what is the most useful methodology. In a session of survey feedback, the expert will begin explaining the results of the evaluation. After this first explanation, employees will work with the data in small groups. They are who study the information and who propose solutions from their experience in the company. Thus, employees have an active role. The length of one session is usually between 90 and 120 minutes. It depends on the time that the organization has to do this type of actions. The groups must be coordinated by one or more experts. It is the organization who decides if the experts are part of the company or not. I recommend that the coordinator of the survey feedback is a member of the team who did the assessment, because he has more knowledge about the methodology used and also about the data obtained. In this slide, you have some recommendations regarding the key role of the expert that we take into account when we carry out a survey feedback. For example, he does not diagnose a problem, he does not identify the causes of the problems, and he does not propose solutions. What is then his key role? Probably are you thinking. He cooperates, facilitates, and establishes the better context to identify problems and solutions. So the expert is, in sum, just a facilitator. This is the key role of the expert, the coordinator. What is the recommended design of a survey feedback session? Here we have 6 stages that we must consider. Prepare the schedule of the meeting, prepare the necessary materials, classify and organize the information, establish previous hypotheses, anticipate understanding problems of the results, and anticipate likely suggestions. Let's see each one of them. Okay, prepare the schedule of the meeting, the first point. The schedule must be realistic, productive, with a length between 90 and 120 minutes, as we have seen before, and with flexibility, because it is possible that we must adapt the schedule depending on the unexpected events. If the assessed organization has, for example, 10 areas, we have to plan 10 different sessions of survey feedback. So we can consider how many areas have the organization. In the second place, the second stage is prepare the necessary materials. It is recommendable to take copies of the assessment report and also tables and graphics with the data for every group. With this material, it's easier to understand the results. The expert must know what is the most relevant information in the material, so he must previously read the report in depth to identify and highlight the most determining aspects. The third stage is classify and organize the information. The information can be organized in 3 different ways. By content, starting with the introduction of the assessment, which includes the variables measured, the model used to understand the occupational health, RED model, for example, as we have seen before, etc. In the second place, explaining the general results of the organization, which include the sample, the data analysis, and the main differences obtained, the results of every area, and the main conclusions. The information also can be classified according to the type of results, for example, positive versus negative results, and by objectives, for example, data more relevant versus secondary data. The fourth stage is to establish a previous hypothesis to explain better the results obtained with the questionnaires. We mustn't share this hypothesis with the employees. The hypothesis just helped us to understand better the results. We mustn't have influence in the opinions of employees. So that point is very important. The fifth stage is to anticipate understanding problems of the results. We have to emphasize in these problematic results, and if we don't anticipate these possible problems of understanding, several important aspects could be not addressed in the session. And finally, the last stage is to anticipate likely suggestions, sometimes related to the organization functioning, as for example, conflictive interpersonal relationships. Other suggestions can be related to assessment methodology, for example. as for example, when we find problems with the validity of the questionnaires, or when employees don't understand the data analysis that we use, which is quite usual. It's very important, don't forget that the true protagonists in the improvement suggestions are exclusively the employees.